Let's talk about following up tonight. This is a vital piece of our business. And of course, in order for us to follow up, it means we have to be getting leads and we have to be getting ourselves out there. So again, we're not going to focus on that tonight, but just remember, and I always preach this to people, it's just so many coaches, people that I'm working with, people that I'm interacting with, they're getting ready to get ready, and they're preparing, and they're learning, and they're watching, and they're listening, and they're reading, and that's fantastic. The biggest thing we have to remember, though, is we've got to be putting ourselves out there on a daily basis in some form. It's doing events, it's especially online, is so easy. It's writing, it's videos, it's audios, it's doing a call like this. This is like the vitally important stuff that we have to share our message with people, and because our primary focus in our business, especially as we're starting off, but that never changes, is building an audience. We got to build that audience. And so as we start to build that audience, we get leads. And I'm going to take you now to the portion where we've gotten the leads, and maybe we've done an event, we've done something, and someone's expressed interest in what we're doing. And this could be, we're following up after a complimentary session, we're following up after some initial inquiry, and I'm just going to kind of talk about kind of our objectives with this. And part of this goes into understanding how to qualify people, because it all kind of ties in together. And then also kind of going through the 9 rules. Just as a note, I do have a video on my sellingcoaching.com university. So if you go to sellingcoaching.com and you go under the university, I have a bunch of videos there. Some are long ones, some are short ones, but there is a video under the Get Leads section. So, or if you just type in the search, how to follow up, top 9 rules, or how to follow up, you should get a shorter video. And it's kind of a summary version of what I'll be talking about tonight. It's the top 9 rules. It's probably I think it's like a 9-minute video. So what I wanted to do tonight is kind of expand on those top 9 rules and add some content that I don't have in there as well. So we can really get a good idea of the rules of following up. The rules of following up, really, it comes down to just making sure that if we're following up with people, that they're genuinely interested in what we're doing. And that goes back to what I just said earlier, is that qualification process. And I've talked about that in several other of my calls. And that qualification process is just really understanding is does this person have a genuine need and an interest in what we're offering? And is the timing right, or is the timing now for them to do something about that need? And it's so important that we are very transparent and honest and open, and then expect that from our potential clients, and so that there's an open dialogue in terms of where they're at. So when it comes to that is in any conversation, especially a conversation leading up to, let's say, a complimentary session before we're giving them our time, or let's say at the end of the complimentary session, and they quite haven't decided yet, and they're giving you some objections, and you just can't seem to get around them or whatever, and they're saying, hey, you know what, I'll get back to you. It's at these points we've really got to ask some deeper questions. And before you go, I just want to find out where you're at, truly where you're at. I'm just trying to find out, what's going on, or I'm so that I understand, where you're at. Tell me a little bit more about, honestly, what you're thinking, because most people, as they say they'll follow up, I tend to never hear from those people again. And so it's using phrases like that to really start to get in a little bit deeper and understanding a person's thought process. We have to remember a potential client that we're going to be either talking to a complimentary session or afterwards. It's hard for people to be honest with us. What I mean by that is it's hard for people to say no. They don't want to disappoint us, and especially as we are so enthusiastic and awesome coaches, and we're passionate about what we do, and we're just giving to people. especially in those situations, people are afraid to just say, no, I'm not interested. No, I'm not interested in the complimentary session. No, I don't want to hire you. I know I just spent an hour with you on the phone, but no, I don't want to hire you, whatever it is. People aren't direct like that. They don't want to be perceived as rude. They don't want to hurt your feelings, whatever the case may be. And so they're just trying to sneak away without really giving you, if you will, the truth. And that's why it's so important that we dig a little deeper by asking some of those questions, especially if there's hesitancy or they're not seeming like if they're not moving forward very easily through any part of this process. It's using our coaching skills, if you will, to sense that hesitation and say, hey, I'm sensing that hesitation. I'm sensing the fact that you're, balking a little bit or not moving forward. Talk to me about that. Tell me about that. Tell me a little bit more about that. And so you find out where they're at on a deeper level, and now you're in a better position. So let's go right into kind of the 9 rules, and I'll start expanding upon that, and then we can see if we can get some question and answer in there at the end. So when I talk about the 9 rules, and even rules, I like to say maybe even guidelines for this. Following up is a vital piece, and that's why like my first rule I write is follow up. And you might be like, duh, what do you mean follow up? Like, that's what we're talking about, right? But most people, they just don't ever follow up. I can't tell you how many people I've worked with where, they've done an event or they've done something, and or even if they've done something online and people comment, or even on Facebook, and they even someone liking something, or just, hey, great job, or love this video, or love this whatever, this article that you wrote. It's following up with people. Anytime someone engages with you, with what we do, even someone coming up to you after an event and talking with you a little bit, and even if they didn't, you got their contact information, but even if you just had a great conversation, it's following up with that. And those are things that, when they're not specifically asking you, and they're just maybe making comments, those are the most important things that I'm talking about here to follow up on. And that's where, when I mean most people don't follow up on things, most people don't follow up on people that are actually interested, because they're either just too scared, or they're hesitant, or like, oh my God, I don't know what to say, or they just get busy and then they forget about stuff. And it's like, we're in a business, we've got to follow up with those people. And then also, even on all those comments, that's what I'm telling you about here is following up on those. Like anytime someone joins like my private Facebook group, if they like my Selling Coaching Facebook page, if they make a blog comment, anytime they like something of mine on Facebook, if you will, I get an email from somebody just saying, hey, I really liked one of your recordings, blah, blah, blah. Like those things, I follow up on every single one of them. And I send people a private message. I will email them back. I'll say, hey, I noticed that you commented or liked or joined my whatever. I'm curious, what was your motivation for liking it? And how did you find out about me? And I'd love to hear more about yourself and your business. Or I noticed you went to the same school that I did, coaching school. Or, I'll just make any remarks and I'll follow up with those people. And this is a really, really important piece to our business, is it's engaging with people and doing it, though, without any intentions. It's doing it without like, oh, well, maybe I can sell this person something, or maybe they'll be a future client of mine. It's just basically just engaging with them to find out a little bit more. And that's a form of following up. So don't think of just following up as just, oh, I did an event, I've got these people, I've got these leads, and now I'm going to follow up with these people. That's a big part of it. But also following up with any person who engages with you in any form that I just discussed. Because when people comment or even like, it's easy for them to do, like if we're talking a Facebook thing, even just liking something, they just click a button. The biggest thing about that is that most people don't raise their hand. And what I found after doing this for 11 years and coaching like hundreds of people over that time is that, literally, like this is a rough guess, but I'd say like if I've coached, let's say 500 people over the last 11 years, I'd probably say like maybe a couple of dozen of them have put their hands up voluntarily and said, hey, I want to work with you as a coach. And I would say all those other people, in other words, the vast majority of people became my client because of my follow-up. And that's the vital, vital point. It's because of the follow-up and my consistent engagement with them. And that's what I'm talking about there. We've got to have that consistent engagement. And so that's the first rule, follow up with that. Now the second rule, and you kind of laugh when I say this, is follow up again. And what I mean by that is it's never just one follow-up. And we've all heard this, if you've done any type of studying with marketing or any type of lead work, et cetera, is that when you follow up once, that's just a start. But people need to hear from you over and over again. And we'll talk about the rules too. Well, how much do I follow up with someone, and how long do I follow up with someone in a little bit? But it's continually following up. And we'll give you some guidelines on that, so you don't have to be kind of paranoid about it. But and I know I told this story on one of my other calls I did, but I followed up with this one guy for 5 years. Pretty sure it was 5 years, and it was like every time I followed up with this person, I met him at an event, and he's expressed interest in talking with me a little bit more, and we spoke a little bit, but it just never happened. And that's going to happen with the majority of people that you come into contact with, is you tend to start to follow up a little bit, and maybe there's some engagement, and maybe they just kind of disappear. But I kept following up with this person, and no response. And then I just got to that point where I did another follow-up, and I'm like, hey, listen, I'm following up on your request because you said you were interested in learning more about coaching, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And I've sent you several emails. I've even called you several times, and you haven't gotten back to me. I just want to know at this point, are you genuinely interested in taking a closer look and learning more about what coaching it can do with you, or is now not the right timing? It's time for you. I would appreciate it if you got back to me, because I value your time, and I hope you'd value mine as well. And the person got back to me, and you know what it was? Is they said that they were impressed with my consistency, and they appreciated that, and they said, you know what, now's not the right time for me, but if that changes, I'll let you know. And then I wrote back, and I was like, hey, listen, I appreciate you getting back to me and being honest. And I said, are you genuinely interested at some point if the timing were right? Because if so, I will follow up with you. But if not, I'm happy to let you go. Just please let me know. And they got right back to me, and they're like, you know what, I am genuinely interested, and now is not the right timing. But if the timing were right, I would consider hiring you. I'm like, fantastic. When would be the best time? When do you want me to follow up with you again? And they're like, just 6 months. I'm like, great. So I put it in the calendar, follow up with so-and-so. 6 months later, boom, followed up with the person again. And how I do that is I just use a paper calendar. And, I'm old school when it comes to, I use technology, but, when I started my business 11 years ago, which, it's not like we're in the 1900s? No, it wasn't even the 1900s, but it sounds so long ago. But, there wasn't like, Google calendars and all this good stuff, and iPhones even for that matter. It's just paper calendar. And I've used that all the time. And I just, when someone says, follow up with me next week, or I follow up with a person in 6 months or 6 weeks, I just go out to that date and I put the person's name, follow up with so-and-so, and I would just make a note in my calendar of, where on my computer to find that person to kind of jog my memory. And I would put like the name of the event or the spreadsheet where I would keep my list of leads. And therefore, if I don't remember, I'm like, who the heck is this person? Because a lot of the times when you're working with a lot of people, it's like, if you're not engaging with them on an ongoing basis, you don't know who they are. So I would just follow up with that person 6 months later. I saw the name, went to that spreadsheet of that event, and I went in there. I had some notes, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the guy I had that conversation with. And follow up 6 months later, and boom, there's all his contact information, and I'd follow up with this person. Bottom line is I followed up with this person for 5 years, and guess what? They ended up hiring me. The timing was right. And is that always the case? If you just follow up with everybody, they're going to hire you? No. However, though, if you gauge their interest, their genuine interest, and they do admit that they're genuinely interested, or if the timing were right, that they might consider hiring you, or it would be something that they'd be interested in, that's a different piece. And so that's why that earlier piece when I started the call off is we really got to start to get down to, are you serious about this? And if you notice in the kind of the, if you will, the email that I sent to him that I talked out loud, to get him to respond, is I'm always very upfront with people, and it's, hey, listen, I am happy to follow up with you. I'm following up on your interest, on your request, because you said, or you expressed, or you showed some interest in speaking with me further. And this way, it kind of shows that I'm not necessarily intruding, and there's a reason why I'm following up. I'm not just trying to bug you. I'm not just trying to follow up with you because I just got your name and email from a list or from the event, the sign-in sheet, and I'm following up because I'm trying to sell you something. I don't follow up with those people. I follow up with people that show some type of an interest. And so when there's some type of an interest, that's when I ask. If they're not responsive, that's when I say, hey, listen, are you still genuinely interested? Are you genuinely interested in speaking? Because if not, that's okay. I'm happy to let you go. Use that phraseology. If not, it's okay. You got to give people permission to say, hey, there's the exit. If you want to leave, that's absolutely fine. But you just need to let me know. Our biggest job as a coach, and now we're teaching you how to selling, right? Because that's a huge piece of your business. You could be the greatest coach in the world, but if you don't understand this stuff, you're not going to be successful because you're not going to get hired and you're not going to make any money doing it. And so what I'm teaching you here is our biggest job is we've got to collect decisions. We've got to collect decisions. What is a decision? It's black and white. It's yes or no. If we aren't getting a yes or a no at some point in the process, from meeting this person wherever we meet them, online, in person, through pre-complimentary session, afterwards, anything that we do, if we're not collecting a decision at some point, yes or no, we're in a gray area of I'll think about it, maybe we can follow up, and that is the worst area to be in. It's an indecisive area, and it's the worst for us because we don't know what to do. We don't know where we should invest our time. And our time is more importantly, our energy is our most valuable resource. And what I'm trying to help you here with is, as a coach, is kind of putting walls around and protecting you from disappointment. Because the reason I'm so passionate about teaching, the selling and the art of this, because in making it fun for you and simple, once you understand it more, is because I got so disappointed so much. Because I'd get these leads that weren't really leads because they really weren't qualified, but I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was just like this uber passionate coach that was just like super excitable and super enthusiastic and wanted to help everybody do anything that they wanted to. And, I'd be booking these calls and booking this thing and following up with people, and just people weren't showing up to complimentary sessions. They weren't following up with me. There wasn't this engagement. And I was like, kind of leading myself on, if you will, that, oh my God, I have all these great leads and I'm so excited. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get these new clients. And then it's just like they just join the witness protection program and they fall off the face of the earth. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Or what's wrong with these people? It's like, what's the case? And that's what I want to do, is I want to save you that disappointment in getting a no. While it's like, okay, well, yeah, of course we want the yes. We want to get the client. However, getting the no is just as good. I want to teach you to love the no. I got to write that down. Love the no. I like that phrase because you have to love the no and want to go after the no just as much as the yes. And oftentimes I find is that when I go after the no, I definitely either get the yes or get the no a lot quicker. And I'm getting an honest piece. And going after the no means, if you will, showing that exit door, saying, hey, you know what, if you're not interested, I'm more than happy to let you go. But if you are, let's talk about this and see where we can go. Where are you at? What are you feeling like right now? What do you want to do? And those types of pieces are really important. So that's what that following up again means. So let's talk about rule 3, speed of response. This is huge. What I mean by speed of response is right now. When do we follow up with somebody? And now this is more, this applies to everything really. It's mostly here is going to be when anyone, after an event, after you do a call. So for instance, I do this call tonight. Someone listening to the call, let's say, sends me an email, message me on Facebook, somehow gets in contact with me and says, Jeff, I really love that call. Thanks so much. Let's just say that we leave it at that. And let's say someone else emails me and says, hey, Jeff, thanks so much. I really love your call. I'd love to talk to you a little bit more, to learn more of kind of like what you do and how you work with coaches. I'm just going to give you those two different scenarios where there's just a general, hey, great job, I really loved your call, and hey, great job, I loved your call, and then, hey, I'd like to maybe learn a little bit more about this, all right? Speed of response in either of those situations means this call is done, it's 10 o'clock, Eastern time, or 10:15, whenever we get off the call. Some of you that have been on the calls know sometimes we go a little late, and so it's like, oh, when do I get back to that? I do it now. I do it right now. And I get back to that person right now. And here's why I do that. Is because earlier in the call tonight I said we're looking for two things. There's the need, and the second one, which is really key, which is timing. So I have a need. This person who emailed me, they may or may not have a need. I don't know that, right? The person who just said, hey, Jeff, loved what you did, loved the call, thank you so much. They may have a need. I don't know that. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to follow up with any intention of, hey, do you want to hire me? I say, oh, great. I'm so glad you loved the call. I'm curious. What did you like most about it? That's what I would say to that person. The person who said, hey, Jeff, loved the call. I'd like to find out a little bit more about what you do. I'd say, oh, fantastic. So glad you loved the call. And, seem like I get to know everybody. And I say, oh, so great to meet you, etc. When you say you want to work with me, tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that. And I might say it a bunch of different ways. I'm just kind of give you an example of something that I might say. But I would follow up now. Because those people, especially the person who said, hey, tell me a little bit more about what you do, or I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about that, they have a potential need. And maybe it's to work with me, maybe it's not. But I want to find that out. And the reason I do it now is because the timing piece, when someone has a need and they're ready to go and they're ready to do something about it, the timing is right now. If I wait till morning, which doesn't sound like, oh, well, is it really that long? Because, well, even in Alaska, right, you're 6 hours behind. So, it's by the time I wake up and it's the middle of the day, like you're going to go to bed, and is much going to change? Well, you don't know that. Anything can change. When someone's hot to buy, they're hot to buy. Real quick story, and I know I shared this on another call as well, as an example of the timing piece is a few weeks ago, one of my friends' grandmothers had passed away many, many years ago, but every year they go to the cemetery, and it's a really emotional day for that person. So I wanted to send them flowers, and I went to my workout in the morning, and I'm like, oh, I want to send them flowers today, and I want to get them, before noontime because I knew they were going to the cemetery. And I had decided I was going to buy flowers, but this person was in another city, and I had no clue other than going online maybe to where to send the flowers or buy them to send them to this person. So I just Googled their city and, flower shops near their city, and I was just calling people, and I didn't care who picked up or where the flower shop was. I'm like, I wanted to buy flowers, and I wanted to get it to by noon. And so I kept calling these places, and leaving messages. And I'm like, why isn't anyone picking up? I'm like, they have a business. Pick up the damn phone or, call me back. And so finally, I got somebody, placed the order, boom, done. 3 hours later, one of the people called me back and, hey, you left a message 3 hours ago. They didn't say that, but you left a message this morning. And I wanted to, follow up on that. I'm like, oh, yeah, you know what? I bought flowers 3 hours ago. And then someone called me, like, I forget how long, but after that, maybe a few hours after that, same thing. So that's a great example of what I call speed of response. Now, is it different for flowers than coaching? Maybe, maybe not. I would say it's not. we're talking about very different price, very different product as well. But when someone's ready to buy, you don't know who they're looking at or what they're looking for. When someone, what I've seen is people that are ready to invest in a coach or work with a coach, they're not necessarily new to personal development, new to workshops and reading books and enriching their mind and enriching their souls and those aspects of bettering their life, whatever case may be. So odds are they've been doing something or they've done something in the past. Most people that are green to coaching, meaning they have no clue what coaching is, and if you say, well, what's coaching? And they're like, oh, well, like my son's high school basketball coach, that type of coaching. That's someone who has no clue really what we do. They're only going to be turned on to coaching as maybe if they see an event of ours or they experience something. So they're probably not looking at a bunch of other people or have a lot of different options. But I want you to think about it just like those flowers, is that when someone makes an inquiry, especially when they're saying, hey, I'd like to learn a little bit more or talk to you about whatever, the speed of response is absolutely vital, because that timing can change in a minute, especially people that go to events. Is when I go to an event, and it could be an online event, it could be in person, etc. It could be someone listening to like a recorded call, like something like this. When they do that, they're doing it. What allowed them to decide to go to this event, if you will, was something was not great or not the way they wanted it to be in their life, and they saw this event or this workshop or maybe it's a group event or something like that, and they go there because they want to get better. They want to make some changes, and they want to meet some different people. They want to learn some different things, and the timing's right for them to do that. And so then they go and they get inspired, and they're like, oh my God. And we've all been to those places, right? We've all been to those workshops or even just listened to something online and went, and you just feel so inspired, and you have those aha moments, and you feel like you're ready to do something. And then all of a sudden, the baby's crying in the other room, or you get a phone call and it's work, or you check your email and you just get bombarded with stuff. And bottom line is reality hits you, and life hits you, and responsibilities hit you, and you very quickly get back into, let's say, if you will, that hole that you or that person came from. And all of a sudden they might get deflated, or their hope is, the door of hope just gets shut in their face again, or all of a sudden their car breaks down and they get hit with all these financial things and they realize how broke they are and I need to go on, but you get the picture. And suddenly, it could be 10 minutes later, and all this changes. So when you are quick to respond, it's so vital. And another piece to this is that it impresses people, because everyone knows everyone's busy, and everyone knows everyone has a lot of things going on. And people, while they understand, people want speed, especially decision makers, people who can create decisions. We want like instant access. Like I know, like when I call somebody, like I want a response, like especially from business. Like I have a high expectation of business because of the way I present myself in business. And I like to get back to people. I like to respond to people. I like to be on top of things. And when I do that, especially after events, I'll do events and I'm like just on the car ride back, the taxi ride back, or like even if I'm doing like a workshop or an event where I've got a table or a booth at an event, where people are coming and stuff like that, like I will, be emailing people back and getting back to them, like if there's a lull at my table or something like that. And people are always like, oh my God, you got back to me so quickly, or I wasn't expecting that. And here I am thinking, even if it's the next day, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry it took me so long to get back to you. Because it's like, I know now is the important piece. And so I really want to really hammer that home for you, because that's a vital piece of not only impressing people, but the timing piece. Let's go on to rule 4. I call this finding the best method of follow-up. So finding the best method is, there's so many ways of contacting people nowadays. There's email, texting, phone, Facebook messaging. There's regular connecting on Facebook. There's LinkedIn, Twitter. I mean, there's so many ways of connecting with people. So we want to find, wherever this inquiry or lead comes in from, we want to just, as we start to communicate back and forth, we want to think about 2 things. First, what is your preferred method of communication? So, like for instance, my preferred method of communication is email, because that's just where I keep everything and I follow up with everything. And if it's in my email inbox, it means it needs to be followed up on or something needs to get done with it. I flag things, I keep things marked as unread, and it's just my whole system. So if I've got any leads or I'm waiting for people that I'm actively, let's say, communicating with or engaging with, I will keep that email thread in my inbox. And I hate emails in my inbox, meaning I want to get rid of that stuff because I would just like to keep it clean and organized. That's just how I am. So the reason I'm saying is that's my preferred method of communication. So if I've got people over on Facebook messaging and all these other places, that's when I tend to lose, like I'm off my game because I'm not going to be on as fast with timing and stuff like that. Even though I've got it all set up, it's coming on my phone, it's coming to the right places. What I like to do is I like to think about, well, first off, what's my method? Okay, it's email. And then if I'm begin communicating with somebody let's say through a different avenue, and I'll just say Facebook messaging, for instance, and this inquiry, if you will, as we start to follow up with an inquiry, etc., it starts to get to the point where it's like, all right, this could probably go somewhere, or this feels like, we need to continue this conversation. I will ask that person, hey, listen, I want to continue this conversation. Would you mind sending me an email at jeff@sellingcoaching.com, and we can continue this conversation over there? How does that work for you? And I always ask, how does that work for you? And usually I'll either get, oh, it works great, I'll send you an email now, or I just look at my inbox and all of a sudden there's an email there. What I want to find out is that if that's not a great method of communication for that person, meaning maybe email works for me, but let's just go with the same example, you're a Facebook message guru or you're a texting person, right? And it's like you were going to respond a lot quicker through text. You just want to find that out. So when I'm meeting people for the first time, and let's say there's some type of lead or some types of inquiries, and I'm going to, let's say, follow up with that person. Let's say I meet someone at an event, for instance. When I get their contact information, I'll ask them, hey, listen, I'd like to follow up with you via email, but I want to find out what's the best communication for you. Like how do you work the best? Where am I going to get the quickest response from you? If I text you, if I email you, and I ask those questions, like, oh my God, texting worked great for me. Awesome. So I have some clients right now that we never email and we text all the time because that's how I get them and that's how they respond. I have people that are exclusively via email. So it's not like I can't do those other things, but it's like, why, if someone's going to get back to me via text, this would be clients or following up as well. Why would I do something where it's just going to make it more difficult? So find the best method. And if they really don't mind, that's when you let them know what is your best method. I always like to take charge with that and offer that up right away. It's just going to make following up a whole lot easier because it's got to be convenient. But especially if it's convenient for them, their speed of response is just going to be a lot better for them. I always do like to have multiple methods. So when I am following up with somebody, if I'm not getting a response, I will try some different methods. That's a vital piece as well. Rule number 5 we'll talk about is seek buying signs. And you say, well, what are buying signs? Buying signs are signals from potential customers where they're saying, like, either literally or maybe secretively that they want to work with you. Let's say they want to hire you or they want to buy your products or services. A lot of the times, they're not going to be those literal things. Like I said, the majority of the clients that I've gotten over the years, these buying signs came in the sign of, hey, loved the call you did the other night. Fantastic. Or I love the workshop you did. I got so much out of it. Just general comments. Well, those are buying signs. Some buying signs are a lot more literal, like, hey, I'd like to, talk about coaching with you. I'd like to discuss more about, what you do or what you offer as a coach. I'd like to talk about your book a little bit more. Tell me more about that. Those are buying signs. They're asking some questions. If someone asks the cost, well, how much does coaching cost? Or how much is that package that you're offering there? That's a buying sign. Why would you ask the price if you're not interested in buying? Of course they're interested in buying, but we got to find out a little bit more things first. So we got to seek those buying signs. And like I said, the majority of them are not so literal. It's like, hey, I loved what you did, or they're just gonna make general comments. And then it's our job to kind of ask a little bit more about, well, tell me more about that. Just like I said in those emails, like if someone had emailed me after the call, I'm just going to ask and kind of follow up and then ask them a question. So if they make general comments, and this is like I said, what you're going to get the most is, love the call, great job, I got so much out of it, thank you very much. Oh great, it was so great to have you on the call. Nice to kind of quote meet you. I'd love to hear a little bit more about yourself, and I'm curious, what did you like most about the call? So what that does is it starts the conversation, and it starts to engage. And it not only allows them to elaborate more, but then it also allows you to start to understand and get to know a little bit more about what's going on in their world. And what you're essentially doing is as you get these buying signs, is you're seeking out a need that they might have that through your products and services you might be able to fulfill. That's our main job as coaches, is that we know our products and services the best, and the majority of people starting off, as a coach, is our only product, or if you will, our only service that we have to sell is coaching. And so we have to understand is that, okay, well, we know what coaching is, but they don't, right? That's their biggest thing, is people don't really understand what coaching is. There's no value attached to it yet. And so nor can we explain it to them. That's why we do like complimentary sessions, or we have those sessions where they get to coach with us and test drive it, so to speak. So when we engage in these conversations, we're looking for their needs that they might have. And then when we see something that where there's a potential need, that's when we say, well, tell me a little more about that. And what are you doing to, I'm curious, what are you doing to improve that or move forward with that right now? Have you ever considered coaching? Is that something you'd be interested in learning more about? Making that transition once you find more of that need. But it starts from those buying signs. And like I said, there are some little ones where, hey, I'd like to tell me about your book. I'm interested in looking at it. I'm interested in buying it. Or tell me about coaching. Those are more literal ones. But we've got to be aware of just the less literal ones where they're kind of secretive. I did a call a few weeks ago, a recorded call you can get on my Selling Coaching University. It's how to turn a blog comment into a paying client. And that's where I had one of my now coaching clients on the phone with me, and we had an email thread back and forth that started with Facebook, that moved over to email, just like I talked about here. All the stuff I talk about, I always, when I show you these things and I give you examples, like you'll see it in actually what I do. This is the stuff I do all the time that works. That's why I'm teaching it. But in that call, we went through the Facebook message thread and then the email thread from point of contact, initial contact, through, if you will, point of sale when they hired me. And that initial blog comment that they made was just a, hey, listen to your call, loved it, thanks so much. And I forget exactly what it said, but it was basically like that. And when I had this person on the phone, I kind of went through and I said, hey, when you made that comment, where were you at? What were you thinking? And they were just like, yeah, like after listening to that call, I could really hear your coaching style. I could hear how you worked with people, and I could see myself working with you at that point. But they said nothing about, hey, I want to work with you or things like that. It was just, they just made a really great kind of almost, if you will, testimonial and great thing about the call. And that's what I mean is that's why you've got to be able to see through those just, oh, these people are just making a comment and, oh, thank you very much, and leaving it alone, versus when I followed up with that person, I didn't do it with the intent of saying, oh, I'm going to have this person hire me, or I hope that they can hire me. It was just more of like, hey, like I said, thanks so much for the great comment. It sounds like you got so much from the call. I'd love to hear what what was so great about it for you. And after I said, tell me more about your business. I'd love to learn more about you. And it kind of went on from there. But I referenced that call because we kind of go through that process of what I'm talking about here. You can kind of see it unfolding live. And not only do I talk about my thought process and why I say things, what I'm looking for, why I say what I do, but also now I kind of ask this person and say, hey, what were you thinking when I said this? How did that feel to you? So again, just another reference for you, but that's how we can move forward with those buying signs. Let's move on. Rule number 6, get the answer. So this goes back to what I said earlier on, but basically it means we're looking for a yes or no. Once we start engaging with them in dialogue, on the phone, through email, whatever else, it could be multiple correspondences. we're looking for them to decide yes or no if they're interested in taking the next step. So there's two pieces. The answer, let's say after the complimentary session, we're looking for a yes or no and a decision, do they want to work with us or not? But before that, as we're creating this dialogue, at some point, if we've got to find that need, that timing, and if it's right, we can make that transition to saying, hey, have you ever considered working with a coach? Is this something that you'd find value in? I'm curious, what do you know about coaching? Is that something you'd like to find out a little bit more about? I'd love to set up a complimentary session for you if you'd find value in that. Does that sound like something you'd want to do? Now are they saying yes? Like, oh my God, yeah, absolutely, that sounds really good, or yeah, I'd love to learn more about that. Or are they kind of like lukewarm, or like, I don't know, I've got a lot going on right now, or I'm kind of busy. If they're giving you some kind of that stuff, don't go through that. It's like, oh, that's fine. I certainly understand. I just heard that you're going through a lot right now, and you want to do something about it. So I couldn't help but want to help you, or see if I might be able to help you through that process, because it's what I do as a coach. So again, it's always coming from a place of where they're coming from, and the reason I brought it up is because of what I heard from you. But either way, you're looking for that yes or the no, because remember, the no is just as good as a yes. Seek out those no's, because now you're not going to spend your time following up that person or pretending to follow up with someone who's really not that interested, and maybe even getting a false complimentary session because the person's afraid to say no, and then you waiting at whatever time during the day for that person to call, all excited that you have a potential client, and then they never show up. So that's the worst thing that could happen. So get the answer. Go after that yes or no, and that's going to be the biggest piece. Rule number 7 is end with a plan. So wherever phase that you're at, when you're talking with a person, let's say on the phone, or you're engaging with them via email, at some point it's going to come to an end where they're either going to say, yes, I want to do something, I want to move forward and buy something, blah, 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 great. Create a plan, what's the next step? So ending with a plan. So when there's a yes, this is where coaches, we've got to guide them, we've got to be proactive and take them to the next step. So, would you consider working with a coach? Is that something you'd be interested in? Is that something you find value in? Absolutely. How would it feel if we had a complimentary session and where we could have an hour on the phone together, and it would give you a really good feel for what it would be like coaching with me. We can get a great feel for starting to move you forward right then and there. And then after we're done, if you see value in working with me, we can go over on how you can hire me. How does that sound? And let's say they're like, oh my God, that's great. And they're very much on the yes side. There's no hesitation. They sound engaged. There's no thinking, maybe it's a yes. So now guide them. Fantastic. Here's the next step. I'm going to send you an email. Or if you're in the email already, just say, listen, what time works for you? Nail out a time, and once we nail down a time, I'll send you some more information. Get the time down. Fantastic, that works. Here's confirming our time. Here's some questions maybe you can answer before our call. I like to ask them some questions to kind of further clarify kind of where they're at, and then move them forward. So that's kind of creating that plan with the yes. You've got to move that person forward and be decisive, because we've got to guide these people through this process as a coach. So now if it's a no, what's the next plan? Well, a no is if it's clear and we've gotten the no, that's fantastic. It's great meeting you. We'll stay in touch, or I can follow up with something in the future, and then we're kind of off and running. Where we really need to make a plan with is if it's I need to think about it, or there's some gray area where it's like, well, can you give me a little bit of time, or can you follow up with me, or I don't know if this is going to work for me right now, etc. So that's where you need to ask them more about what's going on, because odds are at this point they're not that interested, or they're afraid to say no, or just the timing's not right, or they're just not as engaged as maybe you'd hope them to be. So you want to just say, I'm more than happy to follow up with you, but I don't want to do that unless you're genuinely interested. And maybe I'm not getting the sense right now that you're really interested in this, or I'm getting the sense that maybe the timing's not right for you at this point. Tell me more about that, or correct me if I'm wrong. Elaborate on that for me. Tell me what you're thinking, or if someone says, hey, I really need to think about it. Oh, let me ask you. I'm curious. What is it specifically that you need to think about? Or can I think about this and get back to you next week? Yeah, I mean, you know what? That would be fine. I can understand that you want to think about it. I'm curious though. What's going to be different next week that's going to allow you to create a decision versus right now? And we could ask it a bunch of different ways, but if you see there's no right or wrong way, but the wrong way is just saying, okay, I'll follow up with you next week, and then hanging up the phone or ending the email or whatever, and then just the person disappears off the face of the earth. So at this point, it's finding out a little bit more about where they're at and coming up with a plan. And again, if you engage with them and you get down and you find out they are really serious and no, I really do need to think about this a little bit more. I really need to work through a few things right now, or I got a few things going on. That's fantastic. What type of time frame do you need? Ask them that question. What type of time frame do you need? And if they say a week, I go to my calendar and let's just say, today's Tuesday, October 27th. So great. So a week from today would be, I go to my calendar, Tuesday, November 3rd. Great. So do you plan on getting back to me on that Tuesday? Yes. Fantastic. Listen, let me ask you this. If I don't hear from you, let's say by the end of the day on Tuesday, would you be okay if I followed up with you on Wednesday just to kind of as a friendly reminder or just to kind of see where you're at? That's what I ask people because I want to give myself permission from them to follow up with them if I don't hear from them. If they want me to follow up with them, I'll say, I'm happy to follow up with you. What type of time frame do you want me to follow up with you in? Oh, give me a week. And then I go to the calendar. Okay, so that would be like Tuesday, November 3rd. Does that sound like a good day to follow up with you? Great. Awesome. Listen, I'm happy to do that for you. But before I go ahead and put that in my calendar, I just want to make sure that, I'm willing to follow up with you and, until I bleed. All right. I will bleed for you following up with you as long as I know you're genuinely interested. But if you're not interested, I'd actually rather appreciate it that you just tell me right now kind of where you're at. And where are you at? Tell me more about that. So do you still want me to follow up with you? Awesome. So November 3rd, awesome. And I might even say at that point, hey, I'm curious, what's going to happen between now and next week that, you'd be in maybe a better place where you could decide? Because also when you ask those tough questions, you're not putting them on the spot, but you're kind of calling their bluff if they're bluffing. When people are bluffing, they really can't answer these questions. And those are telltale signs that they're really not that interested. And then you just give them an easy out and say, it just sounds like the time is not right for you. Or it just doesn't sound like this is, really that interesting for you. And that's okay. Am I correct? Or tell me about that. And when you do that, it's great. People are just like, you know what, you're right. It's like, I got to go. And they just feel so good. It's a happy ending. And hey, would it be okay if I kept you on my database so you can receive my emails? Or could it be okay if we kind of just stayed in touch via that? And they're like, yeah, that's fantastic. So, they're on your database and there's that form of following up. So those are the big pieces of creating a plan. But when you get that permission from people is in saying, hey, if I don't hear from you, would you be okay if I followed up with you? They're like, yes. Now you have to worry, okay, first off, it takes the pressure off of when do I follow up with them next? Because you've asked them. And if I don't hear from them, do I follow up with them? Well, you've asked them and they've given you permission. It takes kind of a load off, if you will. And then you can focus and put your energy and direct it towards other places. Let's go on to the last few rules and wrap this up. And then we'll just throw a few Q&A if anyone wants to stay on. Rule number 8 is add them to your database. So no matter what the outcome is yes, I'll think about it, or a no, we want to add them to, let's say, our email database most importantly. There's different ways of getting in touch with people. You might have, obviously, an email database. You might have a Facebook group. You might have even like a Facebook page or LinkedIn. Whatever that you have is you want to get them somewhere in those databases. Maybe it's subscribed to your YouTube channel, whatever. But email is probably the most, at this point, is probably the easiest way to kind of keep them a part of it. And when I say add them to your database, because this is, if you will, kind of the default follow-up. Because the default follow-up is I'm not actively following up with you personally via email or phone or any other medium. But this is kind of like they're just receiving, like, hey, when you're putting out new content or stuff's going on, is you're constantly in front of them. And that's a great sign, is if they're really that interested, they will stay a part of your database. If they're not, either they just delete it, or if they're really not interested, they'll unsubscribe. And unsubscribes, when you first see them, they can be heartbreaking, especially if you know the person. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe that person unsubscribed from my database. What are they thinking? It's my mom, But whatever it is, it's like any unsubscribes you get, like learn to love those, because those are no's. Those are like, thank you very much, I'm leaving this earth. And that's a good thing. You want people that are actively engaged in what you're doing. So you want to learn to love that exit door, and as opposed to just wallowing in that piece. So that's where adding them to that database, and that means that you're consistent with putting your education out there and doing calls and doing events and putting out education via your blog or videos on YouTube or whatever mediums you're doing that is, to keep yourself in front of your people. It's vital, 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 because that goes back to the timing piece, is that, the timing might not be right now, but all of a sudden, 6 months later, 5 years later, like that example I said at the beginning of the call, they're still getting your emails. They're still subscribed to your YouTube channel, and you impress the hell out of them because, wow, you're putting out another video every day, every week. You are in front of them, and they might just delete it, but you know what? Every time that you get that email, they see your name, Jeffrey St Laurent, or whatever your name is, and even if they delete it, that's marketing. Best Buy puts a flyer in the Sunday paper, if we even get newspapers anymore, every Sunday. I still get it in the mail. I still get flyers in the mail. Every Sunday, every week, I get a Best Buy, I get a Verizon, I get a whatever, I get something from Comcast. I've been with Verizon for 20 years. I still get something like almost every month from Comcast. They don't stop, because that one day that I'm pissed off with Verizon, I might see that Comcast thing in the mail, and boom, they're in front of me. They're top of mind. And all of a sudden I go, you know what? Maybe I should switch to Comcast. So those are just examples. And you know what? They had a really crummy time in their life, or something happened, and you know what? Boom, your email comes in, and they're like, maybe I should hire Jeff. And maybe now's the timing. That's why we do that stuff. And the last rule is asking for a referral. So no matter what the outcome is always start becoming more comfortable asking for a referral. Even if they say no, they're not that interested. Awesome, so much. It was great meeting you, and I wish you the best. I'm curious, before I let you go, who might you know that might be in a place where coaching might be, value to them right now? Or maybe you're doing an event right now, or something that you're launching, and saying, hey, listen, I appreciate, I'm happy to let you go, and it was great getting to know you a little bit. I'm curious, I am doing an event next week on blah, 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 blah. Who might you know? If you notice, I'm asking it an open-ended question in this sense, and as coaches, we're trained to ask those open-ended questions. So don't ask, do you know anybody? Because they don't know anybody if you ask it like that. But who do you know? Most likely you'll get, I'll think about it. But I've gotten much better response that way. But always ask for that referral, because you never know, what that person is. And especially when you give them an out, and especially if it's a no, and you ask for that, you made them really comfortable, and you made it easy for them to say no, and made it easy for them to walk away. And the cool part of that is now you're ending, if you will, the relationship there, where it's on a good note, versus they're embarrassed or they're not telling you the truth because they're afraid to say no, and now it's awkward for them, and it might even be awkward for you because you can sense it, but you're afraid to bring it up. And that's when the relationship just dissipates, and they don't even want to be on your email database. But now when you end it in a great way, and they're like, oh my God, yeah, you know what, the timing's just not right. Great, listen, would it be okay if we stayed on my email list? And so if something changes, or just so you can get my updates, and like, absolutely. And by the way, who might you know that might be in the place where coaching would be valuable for them? Now they're much more likely to refer you or to want to be on your email database.